So today we're going to do a video for UK progressive tax system. So the UK progressive tax system is a tax system whereby the taxpayer pays a different tax rate based on the income that he or she earns, taking into account the tax rate for different tax brackets that the UK tax system offer. So in this case, we have these tax brackets that I've tabulated here on the screen. So we have the basic rate band, we have the higher rate band, we have the additional rate band. And before all that, we also have a personal allowance, which is the allowance that is given to every taxpayer, whereby the tax rate for that it will be 0%. So we have two different taxpayers here, taxpayer A and taxpayer B, that we are going to do a short example to explain how the UK progressive tax system works. So, as we have identified earlier, that we have a personal allowance of income that ranges from 0 to 12,570, it is 0%. So, when we want to determine our tax rate, we first need to deduct the personal allowance, that is the income that a person earns below the 12,570. Okay, so on our calculation here, we would put 12,570 for our personal allowance. So we do for both the taxpayers. And then we then calculate our taxable income, whereby we're now saying the annual income less the personal allowance to give us what our taxable income. As you can see here, for the taxpayer A income falls within the basic rate band, which is the 12,000 to 50,000, and it's 20% rate. So to calculate this now, we need to apply the 20% rate to the income of the taxpayer A, but we do not apply the 20% to the whole total amount of the annual income, which is 32,500, but we only apply for the income above the personal allowance, which is our 19,930. So to do this, we'll say 19,930 multiplied by the 20% rate to give us our tax rate at 20%, which is 3.9. Since the taxpayer is not within the higher rate band, here we say 0% and 0% again at the 50%. Of course, the taxpayer is not within these ranges in terms of the annual income. So to have our total tax payable, we now add all these to have our total tax payable, which is 3,986. So if we go to B, taxpayer B is within the higher rate band. So for this higher rate band, it's a 40% tax rate. But firstly, we need to identify the portion that falls within the 20% bracket. To do this now, we say equals, we say 50,270, subtract 12,000, multiplied by 20%. So this is the tax rate, it's 20% for the taxpayer B. But the taxpayer B falls within the higher tax rate. But we do not tax the total 65,000 by 40%, but we take the additional from 50,000 to 125 to be taxed at 40%. So we then come here again on the tax rate at 40%, whereby now we say 65,000 subtract 50,000 which is here the higher end of the basic rate band, 50,270, and we multiply this by 40% to get 5,892. And we come here at 45%. Taxpayer B does not fall within the tax rate of 45%, the additional rate band. So it will be 0 here. So our total tax payable will be the total of the 20% and the 40%. So the total tax payable for taxpayer B, it will be 13,000. So the UK progressive tax system, it's a tax system as can be shown here. For taxpayer B, his income is within the tax rate of 50,000 to 125,000, but we do not tax the whole 65,000 by 40%. Firstly, we need to deduct the personal allowance, and secondly, we need also to set aside the portion which applies to 20% rate, and the remainder is taxed at 40%. So this is the simple way how the UK progressive tax system applies.